Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
All right, here we are in March.
Rabbit, rabbit, rabbit.
Oh, shit. Is that, okay, I forget every time. Is that the first of every month?
Yeah, it's the first of every month.
Stop it. I hate it.
All right, I won't say it.
God.
Bunny, bunny, bunny.
No, there's no point in saying any of it. Is this the one that we say came in like a lamb or a lion?
Yes, right. Well, it's cold today, so I guess it's...
Oh, this is now cold?
Well, no, but it was nippy.
It's
well,
like,
for what it's been the norm, it's colder than the norm.
This is a lamb.
No.
That's a lamb.
All right, fine.
You
Well,
see a
then it's going to be a
lion?
bitch for April 1st.
Jeez. See this easy winter is wimpifying all of us. We don't even know what cold is. Well, it is relative. Everything's relative.
It's relative.
So
No.
cold is relative, but you still can't say that.
No. This is not a typical...
A lion
winter.
would be a snowstorm.
Or freezing cold, yeah. But typical, yeah.
So anyway, this is Tom Sokolowski. For anybody who's just joining us, I'm Lynn Cullen, and we're going to babble for about an hour or so here about all kinds of things, sort of breaking news. I don't know that any of you give a darn, but this Andrew Breitbart, who you may know, and if you're in my audience, may have loathed, is dead, which is shocking news. He was, 40, what did he say? 43 years old. He was found dead. There's no other in Los Angeles. He's the right-wing provocateur, I guess I would call him, who posed as a journalist. And he was hardly a journalist. We were reminding ourselves of one of the more recent events that he orchestrated, and that was the Shirley Sherrod incident. This was a woman who worked for the United States Department of Agriculture, and in a speech she had given to the NAACP, he extracted this one little bit, a little sentence that made her sound like a racist, like that in her role she would deny white people grants. Taken totally out of context, and in fact, the rest of her speech belied that that's what she was saying, and in fact she was saying the exact how she learned that color should have nothing.
Right,
blah, blah, blah,
right,
blah.
Right.
So he totally mischaracterized her statements. However, before she had a chance to defend herself.
He quasi-recanted.
Vilsack, who is the ag secretary, who is the agriculture secretary, fired her. All hell kinds of break loose. But this is a kind of mischief that he created over and over again.
And he sort of semi-recanted by saying, I wasn't trying to get her fired.
He was trying to get the NAACP.
NAACP, right.
Well, but he was one of those. He was an ambush journalism guy, played fast and loose with the facts. But he was a formidable character. And one quick Google search I did said, which I did not know, or if I knew, forgot, that he helped to found Huffington Post. So it's all very.
And that's very interesting because she
she started conservative and then ended up liberal.
And then didn't it come out?
Her husband was gay.
Right.
And he was a very rich man who self-financed his campaign for, I think, the Senate from California. And it was after that race, maybe, that he said he was gay. And
well, I have an inside scoop about that. Not about him. Years ago, in the early 80s, when I was the museum director at NYU, New York University, I would often be, because I had higher rank, I would get called to these dinners that the president would do to raise money and what have you. And the president of NYU at that time was a man by the name of John Bradamus, who for 22 years was Democratic whip, very powerful from Indiana, and then got booted out when Reagan came in. Anyway, so he was asked to be president of NYU and made NYU into this glistening place when he left. Anyway, but I would often get called because I lived in the same building where the president.
So wait, you were the head of their what'd you say?
Museum.
The university had a museum?
Yeah, on the east side of Washington Square, art gallery. Anyway, so I lived in the same building where the president did, and often they'd call up like at 7:30. We need an extra man so come up to the penthouse. Well, often when they needed an extra woman, it would be Arianna Huffington. Arianna Stasinopoulos Huffington.
Okay.
Because she was the best friend of the president's wife. And so we would get stuck together very often. And I always remember she had these purses that were covered with, Swarovski crystals. And she had a little gold pen. So she was Aria Johnson. She'd say, "What dirt have you heard tonight, Tom?" And then she'd take out her little gold pencil and write down. And then I forgot all about it. And she was sort of slightly floozy, like those Eurotrash people, as you remember, like on Dynasty or so. But she's turned into quite formidable and smart
Excuse
and
me.
wise.
Well, no, she was always smart.
Yeah, oh yeah.
No, she was a extraordinarily smart woman. Greek by birth, I believe. Graduate degrees from Oxford. Smart cookie. I had a little
necklines.
Yeah, there's something she's very. No, I don't see that really.
Well, she was much younger back then.
She's formidable.
Oh yeah,
and
she definitely is that.
And I once had an interesting encounter with her in a ladies' room.
Oh. Well, did you want to share?
Well, actually, she was a guest on my show on when I did Cullen on cable, and she was a guest, and I was in the bathroom touching up makeup, and so was she, and so we were yapping, and I was very impressed with. This is before she made the complete
twist, yeah.
Yeah, she hadn't quite. She was sort of. You could tell pulling out of the, conservative fold and moving that way. She hadn't quite done it, but I got a look at a woman who was on the move. Is what even in the applying makeup. I mean, she was always. That's the first time I saw somebody like staring constantly at a BlackBerry and blah 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 and this and that and making notes and well, like you said, she was always making notes.
Well, I always got the impression of these dinners she was looking for a rich husband.
Well, she found one. Well, then she found him, and the fact that he was gay was, didn't matter.
Well, man, he had a big pocketbook, and that was all that mattered to her. Because then she moved to because she's California-based now, isn't she?
Yes.
Because she was based in New York back then.
Indeed,
but,
no, she is. So anyway, the news is
well, what's amazing about going beyond her décolletage and her Swarovski crystals, was that she also, Huffington Post is one of the most important, I think. Don't you think? I mean, they just expanded to being, almost like a whole newspaper. Their
somebody told me
the Times.
Somebody said, she hasn't stopped her rise.
No,
they said she'll end up being the head of AOL. That's what I saw.
Oh, wow.
I read somewhere. This is a woman that
power.
She seeks power. She's sharp as a tack. A lot of people don't like her, especially people who have worked with her.
I'm sure she's
and she also
formidable.
is known as a total cheapskate in that most of the people, I guess, and correct me if I'm wrong, audience, because you're always smarter than I am about these things. I believe, some of the people you read on Huffington Post,
yes.
they have big names and stuff, and there's this one and that one and blah, 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 that she doesn't pay him a penny.
Oh, really?
I think.
So it's like clip art almost?
I don't know. I'm very confused about it, but whatever. I've heard a lot of
because
muttering.
I get it on the computer. And it's first you get like Huffington Post News, then you get Huffington Post The Arts.
Well, there's a million. There's a million different
and then
things.
Tons and tons of stuff.
Right.
And
all of that content. I mean,
Yeah,
it's not like they're sending people paychecks, I guess, for a lot of it.
No. Well, I think a lot of people just like the airspace, I guess, or whatever it's called, air coverage, on-air coverage. I mean, some people probably don't care about getting money for it as long as they're on something as impressive.
Oh, yeah. They want to be on, read my blog on the Huffington
Right.
Post.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It makes you sound like you're hot.
Well, I think bloggers, by and large, I think they're unpaid generally.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. But if you can say, you can find me on Huffington Post.
Sure, that gives you credibility.
That sounds big.
Yeah, and it is.
I guess.
Maybe we can go on Huffington Post.
Yes, maybe we could.
We can go. I can talk about her purse, and you can talk about her bathroom habits. Your dear friends, Lynn and Tom, in little old Pittsburgh, Ariana.
Yes, remember us?
Yes.
Okay.
How are you? Where's Pittsburgh?
Okay, so that's. I'm trying to think if there's any other. That's the breaking news, which Breitbart did, which is pretty amazing.
Oh, and then also that horrible, here in Pittsburgh, that horrible shooting in the Brinks Garda.
Yeah, awful.
Awful. I mean, God. And then, did you read the story in the paper where the guy just called his mother or something and said, "I won't see you again," and the mother said, "Did you kill someone?" Which I thought was not the first question my mother would ask.
Well,
and he said, "Yeah," and then asked about who has the stronger extradition.
He wanted to know is Mexico. So the fact that he asked who where would he be safer, fleeing to Canada or Mexico, suggests that this was not the well-planned heist that they're suggesting it was. Because your getaway is the biggest thing, exactly. Shooting somebody in the back of the head who's not expecting, doesn't think he's in danger, and then making off with the money that's right there at your feet. That doesn't take a lot of planning. The plan is, how the hell then do I make off with it? And so if he hadn't even
Canada, since I think it's a gringo, he'd fit in a little better.
Well, that's
and
true.
Be hidden.
That's true.
In Mexico.
Good God. It's just.
And then they made, it's very funny, I hadn't thought about that. They made the point that they thought the money wouldn't be found.
Because it's totally what?
Well, sometimes in those big, sticks of money, they stick in some little small thing that is like a.
Yeah, a dye pack or something, or
no, something that's like a cell phone, not cell phone, but something
that they can track.
Something and they can track, but it seems like this bag or bags or whatever of money didn't have that in it. So he's probably buying.
Well, he was picking stuff up from businesses. So these are this is the money that's come in.
Right, exactly.
So it's not like certain, the serial numbers aren't matching up. It's not
money from a Pick and Pay or something.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so two stories that I found just appalling today that I have to get out. This is the headline: PETA, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. PETA acknowledges euthanasia. Turns out PETA has euthanized more than 27,000 animals in the past 15 years. PETA. Does that fit your idea of PETA?
Well, no.
What?
Wait. No, I thought two things when you were reading that. Number one, oh my goodness. But then I thought, were these...
I'll tell you what they were. I'll tell you what they were.
Poodles?
They apparently have some shelter where their headquarters is in Virginia. Mm-hmm. And it's supposedly a shelter.
Yeah.
But the state of Virginia insists that a shelter that they report to the state every euthanasia. The state keeps numbers. That's how you know 27,000 animals in the last 15 years. And it says here that at one point, a few years ago, that Virginia considered changing PETA's status from a shelter to essentially a kill clinic.
Because isn't that true? Many animal shelters, and I think probably even here in Pittsburgh, if an animal is there over 6 weeks or something, it is just prescribed that it will be killed. That's why they'll have
I don't
paper like the end of the month. Oh, please come and bring your children, pick up the dogs because they're going to be.
Well, Animal Friends does not euthanize anybody.
But what about like the city dog pound?
There is no city dog pound. There's the Humane Society and there's Animal Rescue League. Okay. And both of them have, made great strides in lowering the number of animals. But
yeah, PETA is a bit of a.
So here's what PETA says. Yes, we have a small division that does hands-on work with animals.
Killing them.
Yeah, right.
That's pretty hands-on.
And most of the animals we take in are rejects.
Fair enough.
Which is an awful thing to say about an animal. Yeah. A reject. Okay, and then she defines reject. Aggressive, on death's door, or somehow unadoptable. But here's
pretty.
But here's the
Not
has snaggletooth and ugly as sin, so we'll kill it. And apparently, most shelters in the United States still euthanize about half of the animals.
Well, that's what I said. Yeah.
But PETA's got a higher rate than that. Now they argue they take in these terribly tough animals to place. But listen to this. Listen to this one more fact, because I was thinking, okay, maybe they have a case. Here's where I think their case breaks down. Mm-hmm. The majority of animals they killed were cats. Okay? Now you tell me. I know
how aggressive can a cat be?
How aggressive can a cat? A cat is not going to kill.
No,
a cat is not going to. Maybe the cat peed on somebody's, carpet. But that should not be grounds for a death sentence.
Exactly.
So.
Well, and also the way they say that, in point of fact, most of the time the animals that are thrown out in the street or brought in are some degree or another problematic. So they're dealing. It would be like saying, why don't we kill all the kids in orphanages?
Well, you could argue that. I've always done. I think it's very highfalutin to call them rescue animals. It makes you sound like you're some kind of, oh, yes, I'm an angel. I'm a saint. I rescued. I hate it when somebody says to me, oh, did you rescue her? And I'm thinking, I could say she rescued me, okay? Right. Because, I brought her into my life, and she insisted that I walk 2 or 3 times a day, and I lost a little weight, and I feel better, and, I rescued her. It's how, in my family, it's how you got a dog. You went to the pound and you got a dog. That's not rescuing.
Now everyone wants a pedigree dog.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Well, and if you don't have a pedigree, you have to say, you know, it's a status symbol to say, it's a rescue. And so you have some pedigree? Well, yes, I have something better than that. I have a rescue. I wonder why. So why doesn't Westminster have a rescue category?
Yes, exactly.
So all I want to say is that, a lot of the animals, obviously, that I have rescued, I'm kidding, that I've adopted are have had problems, yes. And then you sort of see why, like my last dog was returned twice to, this poor little thing. Twice.
Well,
total rejection. This
and
poor
also
animal.
These animals, like anything, they need training.
They need training, right? So they're badly trained by their first owner,
right.
and then so sometimes it means you have to do a little more work on them, but you do feel better about giving an animal. The animal knows it. The animal knows. I think. I don't know. Maybe they don't. After a while, they can start to relax. Whatever. I find this appalling. shocking.
It is. I mean, when they're so
it euthanized 95% of the animals at its shelter last year. That's not a shelter. No. If 95% of the animals, PETA admits that, 95% of the animals come in to your care, you kill.
It's an abattoir.
It's exactly right.
And
which
also,
is why the state...
when they're so self-righteous about throwing paint on some chinchilla coat.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a little...
No, I'm sorry, guys. Sorry, guys. That really, that is so...
So wear your minks and your chinchillas, ladies.
Yes, go for it. Yeah. I mean, I don't...
That's a shocking 95%. That's shocking.
I agree. Well, here's the other shocking thing I have.
Okay.
This has to do with a federal judge in Helena, Montana.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, Montana being a state that is, where people are a minority.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I mean, cattle, I think, are the majority, and who knows what else.
I think smallest population, I think. Montana or Wyoming, I can't remember which, but...
Well, Wyoming, I heard, I didn't even know there was Wyoming caucus here. Romney wins Wyoming caucus. And I think, Wyoming caucus? Yeah, what did he get? A quarter of a delegate? What do you mean? And then it turns out there was something like, indeed, in the entire state, that caucus was I think it was less than 2,000 people. So we're talking about a state that only gets one federal judge, one district judge. He was appointed by W. Mm-hmm. Bush. His name is Richard Siebel, District Judge Richard Siebel. Nice-looking man, don't you think? Sort of, kind of.
He sort of looks like Breitbart.
He does look a bit like Breitbart. So all hell's broken loose because he sent out an email to some friends using his, his at work from the court.
Computer, right.
And he said, normally I don't send or forward a lot of these, but even by my standards, it was a bit touching. I want all of you to feel what I felt when I read this. Hope it touches you like it touched me. Okay, here's what he forwarded.
Mm-hmm.
A little boy said to his mother, "Mommy, how come I'm black and you're white?" His mother replied, "Don't even go there, Barack. From what I can remember about that party, you're lucky you don't bark."
Oh, my God. That's scurrilous.
Jess's mouth is just, this is a federal judge. This is a federal judge.
I mean, that, in my mind, encapsulates this albatross that Mr. Obama has had to deal with his entire presidency. That's there underneath all
that kind of hate.
Yeah.
That racism.
Race, hate. And race, I mean, bestiality, the thing suggests.
Disgusting.
But, if you have that at heart, then all of this, our great word, encrusted, all of this business about the economy or religion is just incrustation on basic racism.
Yeah. But it's not recognized as such. They never see it.
Exactly.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
So what am I left with now? So now we'll move in to the religiously oriented part of the program. I've got all kinds of little gems here, but this one came with Mr. Sokolowski. You said it was front page Washington Post yesterday. I did not see it.
Post.
It is the most appalling story. Do you want to tell it?
Well, actually, a friend called and told me about this 2 nights ago. And I said, dreadful. And then she brought me the email and said, look, there's a front page of Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post yesterday. Basically, a lesbian couple, the mother of one of the 2 women, was dying. And the dying mother had been a very devout Catholic all of her life. And the lesbian couple, both of whom were practicing Catholics. And they stayed with the mother in the hospital room for a couple of weeks while she was in a coma, et cetera, and finally died. A very warm family relationship. The mother accepted the daughter-in-law very well, et cetera. So I guess the couple I can't remember if they live in the same parish as the mother, but nevertheless, they didn't know the priest who was going to provide the funeral. So I guess they only spoke on the phone, and she said, "Oh, I want you to know some facts about my mother, so that when you give your eulogy, in addition to religious feelings and, platitudes, as all eulogies have, you'd be able to say something about, my mother loved to knit or whatever." So they went in, and as people know, in the ceremony, there's when the priest gives the homily, it's sort of in the middle of the Mass. So he did that, and he was supposedly very cool and didn't know anything about the mother and maybe even called her by the wrong name. And then Mass went on, and at another point where you take communion. And so the people lined up to get communion, and when the daughter stood up, came to this priest, he refused to give her communion, saying, "You live in sin with another woman." And I guess there was another servant, I forget what they call him, celebrant, not a priest, who could give out communion, and her partner got communion. Anyway, she then was to give her own eulogy a little bit later near the end of the Mass, and she got up to do this, and this priest stood up in his
He had told her she could not speak?
He said something, I think, that she couldn't, or watch what you say, or something of that nature. And she got up to speak and started talking about the mother. He stands up in his robes, publicly walks out from the altar, and goes outside of the church, never to be seen again. There was no one there to finish the ceremony, to bless the coffin. And in many Catholic traditions, the priest then goes to the burial site at the cemetery, and then there's more prayers and more blessing, etc. So basically, he didn't do his priestly duties. And it's interesting because they spoke to the archdiocese. This priest wouldn't speak to anyone. They spoke to the archdiocese, and they say, "No, it is not our policy that if someone comes up to receive communion, that you refuse it."
Well, this is actually this church is in the Washington Diocese, which is headed by Bishop Wuerl, who we all know. And Wuerl has been very outspoken in the past about, remember when there was the political flap, there were bishops who refused to give pro-choice senators or congressmen,
or
John Kerry, blah, 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 don't give them communion because they're... And Wuerl came out, he said he never believes in denying communion to somebody who is seeking it because it's impossible to know what is in a person's heart.
Right, exactly.
And so this priest was
horrible.
Yeah. So this
this morning it said something, and or maybe I saw on the computer, that a parishioner called and said, "Oh, this woman had come, the lesbian had come the night before and sat with him for an hour," and the woman said it was a total lie. She never met the guy. So I mean, it's just horrible because you think about at a time when someone is grieving.
She's burying her mother. It's a very close family. So here's a quote from, she wrote him a letter, the one, her name is Barbara Johnson.
Yes, right.
And she's very fervent Catholic.
Yeah,
even though she's gay. I always find that hard to believe, but there you go. And here's what she wrote to the priest. "You brought your politics, not your God, into that church yesterday. And you will pay dearly on the day of judgment for judging me. I will pray for your soul, but first I will do everything in my power to see that you are removed from parish life so you will not be permitted to harm any more families." So
it's just absolute abject cruelty.
She said he covered the wine and the wafers with his hand. And she said she just stood there for a moment thinking, surely this isn't happening. And here's another quote from her. "I just stood there in shock. I was grieving, crying. My mother's body was behind me, and all I wanted to do was provide for her. And the final thing was to make a beautiful funeral for her. And here I was letting her down because there was a scene."
A scene, right. It wasn't just private, but everyone saw her being rebuked.
And the family is so Catholic. They're saying they don't see this as a reason to criticize the church more broadly. This is not a discussion about gay rights or the teachings of the church, says her brother. We're not in this to Catholic bash. That's the farthest thing from our minds. It has not shaken our faith. But
this priest is a schmuck.
but other Catholics have said it's shaken mine.
Yeah.
You have serious questions, is another quote, about how American Catholics in particular practice their faith. How many divorced people live in a technical state of sin?
Sure.
How many people practice some form of birth control? Do they deny, if a young married woman, if all these young married women come up and they only have one child or two, couldn't the priest sort of assume, figure out that the rhythm method doesn't work that well?
What does the Bible say? Let he who is without sin cast the first stone.
So this Catholic says that the church will now have these state of grace police. How can that be? That's the most personal thing in the world between a person and God. And this priest, Reverend Marcel Guarnizo. That's just appalling.
Also, you don't think this is comforting, and aren't clerics or religious people of any persuasion? They're there to comfort and to help people get through these things. And this is using religion like a
cudgel. Yeah. Well, as she said, I think she said it beautifully. You brought your politics.
Yeah.
About his politics.
What is the world coming to?
Well, I have more religion. For some reason, all of these religion things came my way in the last 24 hours, and a lot of them are Jewish. So let us turn away from all of you Catholics who get all the attention all the time of late. What about my poor little people? There's so few of us.
All those years in the desert.
Yeah, we're still wandering around. Yeah, we're the chosen. Let me tell you something. You want to be chosen? You can be chosen. No great honor.
Worthy of Milton Berle.
Chosen for what, I'd like to know.
Really, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So here you have it. Have you ever heard of Jew Hill, Pennsylvania?
No.
No. Me either.
What part of the state?
It looks like it's in the way up north, almost in New York.
Like Scranton or something like that?
Well, no, it's way up. I don't know. I Googled it. I couldn't find anything on it. Jew Lake, Pennsylvania. Jew Hill. There's a Jew Lake, Illinois.
Okay.
There's a Jew Creek, Arkansas. Jew Mountain, Montana. But what I want to talk to you about is Jew Pond in New Hampshire.
Okay, yes. All right, let's go there.
Now, turns out that, there's this little pond, and the locals call it Jew Pond.
Why?
Well, that's interesting. Most people didn't even... People who moved there late to this little town of Mount Vernon in New Hampshire, didn't know there was a pond called Jew Pond. But what happened is there was an algae bloom. The pond was bacterially compromised, and so it ended up in the newspaper that Jew Pond had an algae bloom, and well, the town has 2 Jews in it who are relatively recent to the town. Okay. They said, "What? There's a pond called
Just
Jew? Yeah, Jew Pond? You gotta be kidding me!" So they made inquiries.
Did they have someone come and kosher it?
Yeah, no.
The pond to get rid of the algae.
So the town health official who had, put the Jew Pond under, whatever protection sanction. He petitioned authorities in the town council to change the name, because he said, it hadn't occurred to me, but these 2 people were very upset, and it's not a respectful name. Mm-hmm. And the town's establishment, the Yankees there in New Hampshire, they have dug in their heels, insisting that the Jew Pond is part of their heritage. And now there's a meeting set for 2 weeks from today to decide whether Jew Pond is a proper name or not. Now, checking into this is the
archivist.
Well, back to the Catholics. I mean, you guys are everywhere. So
I'm not. Oh, but we have to stop you. One of the people who always writes in, she says she's a recovering Catholic, and then what she says is, I guess, how much does the daughter have to pay? And that's
the priest.
You pay to have so she wasn't even getting her money's worth for that funeral mass. I mean,
no, because he didn't bury her. He didn't. He walked off the job.
Yeah.
What a despicable person.
But anyway, the archivist, does anyone say why it's called?
No. So the bishop.
Oh, okay.
The Bishop of New Hampshire wrote an editorial on it and let people know, in case they didn't understand what the fuss was about. Mm-hmm. The bishop said, you just absolutely know that the name is meant to convey some measure of contempt. He immediately knew. You don't make a pond Jew pond without referring, I'm sure, to something negative.
Right.
And even a member of the town historical society who thinks they should keep the name acknowledged that the name was probably an insult.
Begun in infamy.
Right. So, here's the story behind it.
All right.
Okay. There used to be in the 20s, 1920s, the earlier, even before that, there used to be a hotel called the Grand Hotel that overlooked, I guess, the town and the surrounding hills. And it was there for people to come out of the big cities, out of Boston, out of New York in the summer and escape the heat.
So it's like the Catskills. So
yes. But it was it catered to city people. And it did not cater to Jews because the Grand Hotel barred Jews. It wrote in a brochure, this is something the archivist might know, in its advertising, Hebrew patronage not desired. So that's just, I guess, a fancy way of saying Jews keep out, right?
Yes, exactly.
Hebrew patronage. So
you could say no bagels served here.
Yeah. You want lox and bagels, you go somewhere else. So I love stuff like this. So 2 Jewish brothers in 1927 bought the hotel.
Oh,
I love it.
Perfect.
They bought the hotel. They remade it. They did start attracting a Jewish clientele.
Sure.
Okay. And they dredged the little reservoir and created this beautiful pond.
Yes, okay.
Which they dubbed Lake Serene. Well, if you got,
No, I know, but I'm just laughing. How did we go from Lake Serene to
because,
yeah, people hated it.
Stop and think of the era. It was 1927.
Of course.
In 29, the brothers, the crash occurs. They lose their clientele. Nobody's got the money. They lose the hotel. And
poor Serene Lake.
Yeah, and so they left. And once and the hotel burned down a year later.
Perfect.
Although they had sold it back to its original owners.
Oh, okay.
Once the place was gone, the locals just started referring to the pond as Jew Pond. Because remember those Jews that came here and they made that pond?
And all those bagels, right.
Excuse me. So it was Jew Pond.
The map has it, but this map in whatever paper that was.
Well, this
showing you places all around the country that have these pejorative.
Have Jew as part of their name. Now there's stories behind all of these, but there's a Jew Street in Condom, Oregon, and as I said, in Pennsylvania there's a Jew Hill. West Virginia has a Jew Road. You got to figure. Some Jew lived on some poor Jew came to town and maybe built a little house on a road, and it was forever known as Jew Street, right? Jew Road, Jew Creek, Jew Lake. Now, what's fascinating to me about this is
we should call up. I'd love to hear Sophie Maslow speak about this. Since she was the street sign person in Pittsburgh, wasn't she the one?
Who put finally...
Street signs, because there were never street signs, people said.
Yeah, she did finally put...
It's very recent. And that people would say, Lynn Cullen, she lives 3 doors away from Mrs. Jones, who lives 2 doors away.
Right,
and if you didn't know those people, you could never find anything.
That's true. Ray writes,
Oh, right. Okay.
It is my experience that Catholic priests are like doctors in a way. We surrender to them control over some of the most important decisions and moments of our lives. We assume almost superhuman qualities in them. But finally, we have to remember that even doctors are subject to malpractice judgments and sometimes imprisoned. I wish we could do the same with our religious figures for something other than pedophilia or embezzlement. Simple spiritual malpractice suits would shut up some of the worst of them. God, is that true? I was once very moved by a priest friend of mine who explained why no sacrament should be denied to a petitioner because, quote, you don't know what profound act of God's grace brought him forward.
How beautiful. That is absolutely true. Absolutely true. You know, I was just reading something on this. It's tangential, but not really, about in the aftermath of the death of Bishop Bevilacqua.
Yeah.
Who just buried all that stuff about molestation, but the one guy who, you remember,
he saved a memo.
He saved it.
The one who's on the fact of the matter is Bishop Bevilacqua, Cardinal Bevilacqua, ordered he was before Wuerl.
Oh, that recent.
It went Bevilacqua, Wuerl, Zubik.
Yeah.
So, Bevilacqua ordered the names. There were 35 priests who the diocese thought were...
There had been investigations of one sort.
Were molesting children. He ordered... Someone had put the names together on a memo. He wanted every copy of that memo shredded.
But this one priest...
But one priest
locked it away up until
kept it.
Just recently.
Yeah, right. It's just,
when the case came up.
So this priest who's on, it could be the first priest to actually go to, I mean, they're trying. Oh, no, he wouldn't be the first priest to go to jail.
No, he would go to jail because he was the one who...
What he's saying, he brought the memo thing up because he's saying, why are you on me? He said, you see that how this went all the way up.
That's right.
It went up to the cardinal.
Yeah,
I'm supposed to blah, 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 blah.
It's a communion gate.
Yeah. But I mean, the thing about Jew pond or Jew this, I was thinking, technically to me, it doesn't, I think, well, I don't know, is that pejorative? Because if you say to me, describe yourself, use some adjectives, I mean, Jew might be one, or Jewish, I'm a Jew. I don't think, what it shows is that Jew, which is what I am.
Yes, right, exactly.
Is a dirty word to a lot of people. It is, so to call something
Well, I would say further, you're right, but I think it really comes, it is a word, though, that means, first off, before even like dirty, different.
Yeah, well, right, but it's not meant...
No, it's not meant in a kind way.
Not meant in a kind way.
Exactly.
So, a Baptist that doesn't have the same kind of... Yes.
Or Catholic.
A Catholic really doesn't, and but Jew.
Mm-hmm.
So, I remember once when I first started doing talk radio, I said, I did the show and I was doing some shtick and I was saying, I am a raven-haired Jewess.
You are.
I am. And I've always been a raven-haired Jewess. And do you know, I got letters. This is before email and stuff. I got letters, even from Jews, saying, don't use that word. It's a pejorative.
Right.
I said, what? How could it be a pejorative?
Right.
It's the noun that defines me.
Right,
it's a female Jew, a Jewess.
Right, right.
How is that a pejorative? I was so stunned by it.
Yeah.
So I looked it up in the dictionary.
Well, what else would you call yourself?
Well, it turns out that it is a pejorative.
Oh, really? But what would you have said?
It's considered here's why it's a pejorative. Why Jewess is a pejorative and why Jew is. Because a Jew is a bad thing. That's what it is.
What else could you say? I mean, obviously, you're from Wisconsin.
You would say you're a Jew. You're a Jewess. What would I say? Here's what you say.
No, wait. But the point is, what would you, like, if you said you were an Israelite, that's wrong.
Well, that's stupid. I'm not.
You're not a Zionist. Oh,
no,
you could be.
I might be.
I can be a Zionist.
Yeah, right.
So what else would you say?
Well, see, we'll go back to the hotel that didn't want Jews. They wouldn't use the word even Jew. They said Hebrews. Okay, now, I have watched people who you can tell think Jew and Jewish is a bad word. They know it is, because in their heads it is. stumble all over themselves in forming a question like this. This happened to me a million times in my life. I exaggerate only slightly. Well, you are wait, here's what I've heard more than once. Here's what they come up. You are of the Hebrew persuasion.
It's like you drive a Camaro.
Yeah, right. It's like they can't look at me and say, you're a Jew, right? Because it's like saying you're an N-word. I mean, exactly. It's what I am is to them such an awful thing that it's a pejorative.
You know, it's very funny. I just remembered this. When I was still director of the Warhol Museum, we had the last benefit under my aegis. And I stood up because I was sort of master of ceremonies, introducing people and thanking people again. And anyway, and I'm usually quite funny, especially in those circumstances.
I bet you are.
Anyway, but a couple of times we had a live auction to benefit the museum. And at one point, I don't know, but I used a Yiddish expression. And a number of people laughed. And then something further on, I said something like, "Oh, yeah, there's so-and-so. He's a real mensch." And it was someone who was Irish or something. And at one of the tables, I couldn't hear this, but a friend was sitting there. This woman twice to her husband said, "See, he's really using all those Jew things." And like, "Oh, I think he's really Jewish." So, you know, I mean, I just thought.
Also, they decided you were a Jew.
Because
you used
why
some
would I
Jewish
use
words.
those terms?
Isn't that something?
It's just, and their Jew was definitely meant to be like, fat.
Yeah. So that's it. So that kind of Jew thing it generally stays beneath the radar.
Right.
But Jews, believe me, Jews are aware of it. We hear the dog whistles in ways that other people never.
Well, you know, it's really
do.
interesting. It really reminds me, and like one goes back to the 40s, well, much earlier, but how often people, either black people, would say this, or I even heard certain people, you know, in my neighborhood when I was growing, you know, Polish people like, "Oh, well, don't bring it up. Just like, you know, let it stay beneath the surface. Like, don't stand out." And I think the ethos of the moment is, since the civil rights movement and everything, now stand up whether you're black or Jew. Now, obviously, if you're black, it's harder to be subcutaneous. But I think that's not what the turn of the times is.
Well, I can't remember what I was saying to somebody when if I grew up as a Jew in a just overwhelmingly Catholic town. Right. And there were no blacks in that city, in Green Bay, when I grew up. There was one family. And so we were very much a minority. Yeah. The number of Jews my age were, you could count on two hands. Mm-hmm. So I think you can go one of two ways growing up in a situation like that, where you do encounter all kinds of stuff. And that is, you can try to hide, as you're saying. You can lay low, go underground, assimilate, which a ton of Jews did after World War II.
Oh, yeah.
A ton of them. And you see them come out, like Madeleine Albright finds out, you mean I was Jewish?
That. Yeah,
or even John Kerry finds out his mother was so these people who hid, who just decided they didn't want their children to know. And they thought that would make them safe, or, because to be a Jew is to be, obviously, after World War II, you got the idea that being a Jew was a dangerous thing.
Yeah, sure.
So you could do that, which people do, or you can do what I ended up doing, which is just my nature.
Yes.
Which is to say,
I'm a raven-haired Jewess.
I know, which is to say right off the bat, so people know I'm a Jew. Okay, right. I'm a Jew, and I don't want it. And I do. It's not like, and especially.
And what's so funny is from someone from the other side, just like that woman I quoted at the reception. Like, see, she's like putting it in our face. No, I'm stating fact.
Yeah, I'm a Jew. Okay, all right. We have to take a break.
That was a good riff.
I'm a Jew, you're a Jew, we're all Jews. Jew for a day.
I have to bring you.
Okay. Go ahead.
Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com or call Lynn at 412-316-3381. Lynn Cullen Live will return in a moment.
Are you struggling with your mortgage payments? Call 888-995-HOPE to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about your options, or visit makinghomeaffordable.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Treasury, HUD, and the Ad Council.
Go to bergbargains.com for great deals on tickets to the ballet, opera, City Theater, Science Center, Symphony, History Museum, and the Carnegie. bergbargains.com, Pittsburgh's only online deal site where the deals don't expire. bergbargains.com. Pittsburgh City Paper's annual summer camp preview is available now. It's time to pack up the kids. Pick up one today for Gaelic Storm, Carmeletta Tropicana, Buckwheat Zydeco, and Disney on Ice. Pittsburgh City Paper available at over 1,700 locations throughout Western Pennsylvania and on the web at pghcitypaper.com.
Have a question or an opinion? Call Lynn Cullen at 412-316-3381 or email lynn at pghcitypaper.com. Now, more with Lynn Cullen Live.
Okay. So I just got to get this in because it's timely, and if I talk about it tomorrow, it'll seem stale. But if you heard the latest Romney flip-flop, it's beyond belief.
No. What is this?
Okay, so there's, now that we're going after contraception and stuff like that. He was doing a radio interview in Ohio, I believe, and he was asked if he supported the Blunt Amendment, which is Senator Blunt from the less than great state of Missouri, who has proffered a bill that I believe is being voted on today that would allow any employer who offers health insurance to their employees to deny coverage to his or her employees for any procedure or medicine or anything that somehow offended the employer's religious beliefs or moral beliefs.
Now, as a debater in high school, one thinks, you're forgetting what one thinks about that specific issue. Well, what about if I don't believe in cancer or leukemia? Could I stop those things? I mean, how do you that's just illogical. And how could that make it through the courts?
Well,
I mean, the vote can do whatever the vote wants.
Well, the vote is purely a mischievous bill because they're saying that, for instance, for Claire Blunt, his fellow senator from Missouri is Claire McCaskill, who is a Democrat. Missouri is a very conservative state. She's up for re-election.
Is she the one who's not running?
No, she is running.
Oh, okay.
And so he's putting her in a difficult position too, because this is one of those red meat for the conservatives. Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, Romney, when asked the question, "Are you for the Blunt bill?" Because God knows Rick Santorum is.
Oh, that's
he says this: "I'm not for the bill. The idea of presidential candidates getting into questions about contraception within a relationship between a man and a woman, a husband and wife, I'm not going there." So that's great.
Yeah.
Romney was saying, what are we talking about? This is not what I'm not running for president to get in bed in between couples. I don't. So no sooner had he uttered those words than, of course, the wonderful conservatives in his party went ape shit, right? And Romney, being the unbelievably spineless character he is, before the day was out, corrected his remarks.
That sounds like Santorum saying, the blah people.
Yes, right. Oh, yeah. That's all it says, blah. Saying he strongly supports the Senate amendment. And he says, of course I support the Blunt Amendment, he said on a conservative Boston radio show. It's unbelievable. In less than 24 hours.
Well, it just shows you these people. It was very funny. Someone, I can't remember which state it is. There's a woman who's always been fairly liberal, senator, I believe, and she's not running.
Olympia Snowe.
Yeah, that's right. And I loved someone who I think it was someone from her own state, but he said, well, I know the feeling when you feel that you just don't have the stomach for it anymore.
Sure.
And that's why she's staying out. But I still feel I have the stomach for it. And
Well, I don't know how anyone can have the stomach for it.
Well,
it's
no,
unbelievable.
but he says, no, these people, these guys, it's mostly guys, they want to get elected, and they will just say their mother was a chicken if they're in a farming state. I mean, that's what's just so repulsive about it all. I mean, the one thing, as you've said, and I've heard other people say, as loathsome as Santorum is, at least he's consistent.
Right. He believes what he says, he sticks to it. Right.
And that's why I would never vote for him. But these others... shilly-shallying, and then forget about it. I mean, this is all these fairly public, but what about when it's about money? And now that you can give more money than you ever could before, right. And that's going to be very quiet, as you know, until someone outs it. It's like, what was it for our city? Play for pay, or what is it called?
It would be called pay to play. Pay for play. Pay to play or something.
Yeah.
Well, so that's the way government works around here and
everywhere.
There. Oh, I saw a great tweet today. And as a matter of fact, I retweeted it.
The raven-haired Jewess retweeted.
The raven-haired Jewess retweeted. Let me find my own tweet. Do you think I know how to do that? Can you? Okay. Well, it was about, I think I can remember. It said that if ExxonMobil, just find it for me. Did you find it?
GOP claims that.
Okay, so the Republican claims that Exxon,
ending big oil.
That ending subsidies to big oil. It will cost jobs. Mm-hmm. That's what the Republicans say. Yes. You can't stop giving the fabulously rich oil companies millions and gazillions of taxpayer dollars. It'll cost American jobs. And this guy tweeted, starting with about the jobs of 60 congressmen.
Exactly.
Oh, for God's sake. If you don't laugh, you'll cry. So, everything is relative. We said at the beginning of the show, cold, hot, it's all relative.
Yes.
So is time.
Yes, of course.
So here's how I know where time is. I remember once talking to a group of high school students, I think, about my job when I was a television reporter. And I said, I only get at most 2 minutes to tell my story on the news. Mm-hmm. I said, now 2 minutes sounds like no time at all, and it often is. It is so hard. That goes so fast. And then there are those times when 2 minutes
is like a lifetime. Yeah.
It's an eternity. You cannot believe how long
when
it
I
is.
started doing this, TV and things like that because of my job, sometimes you'd say that like 10 seconds can be interminable on TV. It's all like boom, boom, zum, 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 what was those things? What was it? The Muppets were like A, B, C, C, D, D. Everything is fast.
Everything's
Absolutely
fast.
Right.
You know what? That's one of the reasons that Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers, did not really like Sesame Street.
No, I can see it was a whole different modality.
And he said it's moving too fast. It's moving way too fast, which is why, and so, I mean, his show is so slow. And it's why there's not a Mr. Rogers type children's show anymore, because our kids now are, I mean, they're in utero and they're playing video games on, so this sense of time speeding up. And I remember always arguing that I could see it in television from when I started to when I got the hell out, that they kept compressing time more and more so that a sound bite, which 10 seconds is not, it was interminable, and now it has to be down to 4 seconds. And
you notice that, or used to, maybe it's not, I haven't been abroad in a little while, but when you would watch the news, like in Italy, and it's not like very staid, and it's just the head talking, and now cutaway, special tape, so-and-so.
Right, nothing stays for more than a split second. And this is to keep our attention. Mm-hmm. But it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. What ends up happening is we in television, at least that's how it was explained to me, we were told that the attention span of the average viewer was getting shorter and shorter and shorter.
It was like
so we
Roadrunner.
we kept dropping, trying to keep the attention. Well, I'm not so sure that it wasn't going the other way around, that we weren't. Sure. So we kept making it shorter and shorter and shorter, and then the audience expects quicker and quicker and quicker. And before you know it, we're down to nothing. Well, so this is what front page New York Times today. Now, when you go online and you click on something, if you wait, if it takes more than what?
Right away.
3 seconds? If it takes more than 3 seconds, you say, hell with it, and you move on. Really, they've done research.
That's true. Yeah.
Here's how bad it is. Here's how bad it is. A 2009 study found that online shoppers expected pages to load in 2 seconds or less, and at 3 seconds, a large share of people abandon the site. 3 seconds. 2001, 2002, 2003. I'm out of here.
Well, what's very funny? I've noticed when I turn my computer on in the morning, I can't get email right away because it's
right.
But Amazon.com comes on like.
Well, the quickies are, of course, Google, and the major search engines are the speed demons of the web, and they typically deliver what you want in less than a second.
And now there's this new thing that was in one of the, I think it was a local paper, where now Google, you can move from Google to AOL. They're doing this crossbreeding thing.
But what does it do to us and our expectations? We have if we can't have something literally immediately, we're out. We're gone.
What's bad, and it's particularly bad for kids, young kids, because
bet.
we remember. And we remember how if it's a slow entree into a story, or music that maybe isn't but is quieter, or a play that takes the first scene to get going, people walk away. But you have to then give your sense that sort of, we used to say in the theater, willing suspension of disbelief, and now it has to be a willing suspension of time.
That's right. Listen to this. Research has shown that you and I and everybody else are less likely to return to a website that makes us wait for more than 250 milliseconds. A millisecond is 1,000th of a second. So, wait. The one beat of a hummingbird's wings is 20 milliseconds. Takes 20 milliseconds. An internet user will be turned off by a site that does not deliver to him at 250. If it's longer than 250 milliseconds. May I go back to the hummingbird? One beat of a hummingbird's wing is 20 milliseconds.
Haven't they heard about foreplay? I mean, really?
A blink of an eye is 400.
Or the twinkling of an eye.
Milliseconds. 4 out of 5 online users will click away if a video stalls for even a moment. So I just think what this is doing to us is ultimately going to make us all crazy. I mean, it's going to make us crazy, impatient, unwilling to wait for anything.
Well, we have to have
and life
downtime.
is about, bored.
Boredom. We have to be ready for boredom.
Right, but boredom now will be literally, I didn't have anything in front of my face for 2 seconds. What was I supposed to do?
Read a book?
Yeah. Jeez. I'm just here to tell you. All right. Goodbye. That's it.
Goodbye, and slow down.
Really, slow down. Of course, you'll get run over by everybody else, too.
That's true, too.
Okay, tomorrow. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. Why Pittsburgh is a hidden one?
I don't know.
First one.
I don't know.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.